Kai stared at the floating menus, feeling a wave of nervousness wash over him. The interstellar restaurant was unlike anything he had ever seen. Tables hovered a few inches above the ground, softly glowing in blues and purples, while the walls shimmered like liquid glass. Outside the large panoramic windows, the city floated in layers, with starships zipping past and neon lights reflecting off the metal skyscrapers. He adjusted his jacket, trying to appear calm. His date, an alien named Zorvak, was already floating lazily in front of him, their many eyes scanning the menu with precision. Kai swallowed hard. He had been excited when Zorvak had agreed to meet him. But now that he was here, the excitement had evaporated into a mix of anxiety and awkwardness. "So," Zorvak began, their voice a melodic hum that made Kai's teeth feel funny. "I am particularly fond of the hydrogen synth octopus. Its tentacle patterns indicate nutrient efficiency of 92.7%. Kai blinked. "Oh, that sounds interesting," he said, smiling nervously. He had no idea what to say next. He didn't even like octopus. Back on Earth, he was used to simple meals, pizza, burgers, or maybe some pasta, but here, even food was alien. The table floated closer together, almost nudging him. And Kai realized that the restaurant's technology was designed to encourage conversation. But he wasn't sure it was helping. Zorvak went on and on about their favorite nutrient sources, orbital dining patterns, and interstellar agricultural efficiency. Kai nodded politely, but he felt like he was drowning in information he couldn't possibly process. Kai tried to ask a question. "So, do you, like music?" Zorvak's eyes blinked in unison. "Music is an interesting concept. On my home planet, we communicate with harmonic vibrations. But your question is vague. Are you referring to auditory vibrations? Or cultural rhythmic entertainment?" Kai laughed awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. I mean, songs. Like singing." Zorvak tilted their head. "Ah, songs. I find them inefficient, but socially acceptable for human interaction." Kai forced a smile, feeling more out of place with each passing second. He glanced around the restaurant. Around him, tables were filled with strange creatures of all kinds. Some had multiple arms, some glowed faintly, and some floated like balloons. They all seemed to be communicating effortlessly, laughing, sharing meals, and enjoying each other's company. And here he was, a human, struggling to keep up with one alien's overly technical approach to conversation. Kai's stomach tightened. He had imagined a fun, lighthearted evening. Maybe some laughter. Maybe a story or two about life in the stars. Instead, he felt like a child lost in a school of geniuses. The food arrived, levitating slowly to the table on small anti-gravity trays. Kai stared at it, trying to figure out how to eat it without offending Zorvak. Tentacles twirled in glowing sauces, spheres of protein hovered above sparkling grains, and a faint mist of sweet aroma drifted upward. He picked up a small bite with the floating utensils, his hand trembling slightly. Zorvak observed silently. "Your technique is inefficient. It would be more optimal to grasp the sphere from beneath and consume in 3 equal motions." Kai laughed nervously again. "Right. Of course." He mimicked the movement, but his clumsy hands knocked a small sphere onto the table. It bounced once, then hovered in the air. Zorvak's eyes blinked. Kai wished they would just smile. He needed something, anything that showed he wasn't failing completely. The meal continued in silence, broken occasionally by Zorvak's analytical observations. Kai tried to talk about Earth, thinking that perhaps sharing stories from his home planet might spark some connection. I'm from Earth," he said, trying to sound casual. "It's, a blue and green planet." Zorvak's eyes widened. "Ah, the third planet from Sol, home to carbon-based life. Humans have demonstrated adaptability and resourcefulness, though their technology is still in development compared to interstellar standards." Kai smiled weakly. Yeah, I guess you could say that. He realized he was starting to feel embarrassed, but he couldn't leave yet. He wanted to make a good impression, even if it was impossible. He tried to steer the conversation toward hobbies. I like reading, exploring different places. I love seeing new things. Zorvak nodded, slowly spinning in the air. Exploration is logical. However, I do not understand why humans often engage in leisure exploration rather than resource-based missions. Efficiency is desirable, Kai sighed. He wanted to disappear. Every word felt wrong. Every gesture awkward. He had imagined a night of laughter, connection, maybe even a spark of something more. Instead, he felt tiny, insignificant, and hopelessly unprepared for a world so far beyond his own understanding. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Zorvak's multiple eyes blinked in a pattern that Kai had learned, indicated their attention was elsewhere. The date was over. Zorvak floated upward slightly. I believe this meeting has been informative, they said politely. Data collected aligns with preliminary expectations. Goodbye. Kai forced a small wave. Goodbye. His voice sounded weak even to his own ears. Zorvak floated away, leaving Kai alone with the glowing, untouched remnants of the meal. He let out a slow breath, leaning back in his chair. The feeling of failure pressed down on him. He had wanted the night to be perfect, or at least enjoyable. But it had been the opposite. The city outside shimmered in the lights of distant ships and glowing towers, but it did nothing to lift his mood. Kai sighed again, feeling the weight of isolation. He had come to this city to start fresh, to find opportunities, maybe even friendship or love. But tonight, he felt more like an outsider than ever. He watched other diners laugh, sharing meals and stories effortlessly, while he sat alone, unsure if he could ever belong. The floating trays hummed quietly as he pushed them aside. Kai stared at the soft purple lights of the restaurant ceiling. He felt tired, not just physically, but in a deeper, more profound way. The stars outside seemed distant, unreachable, like dreams meant for other people, not for him. Just as he was about to stand and leave, a soft voice startled him. You don't belong to nowhere, it whispered. Kai turned quickly. A young waitress stood beside him, her uniform glimmering faintly under the restaurant's soft lights. Her eyes held a gentle warmth that felt familiar and comforting, like sunlight after a long night. Kai stammered, unsure how to respond. The waitress leaned closer, her voice soft enough that only he could hear. I would have chosen you. Kai froze. His heart raced, and a strange warmth spread through him. The words felt like a small beacon in the dark, a light reaching him when he had almost given up hope. Then, as suddenly as she had appeared, she moved away, attending to other diners with a gentle smile. Kai sat there, stunned, staring at the spot where she had been. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He felt something he hadn't in a long time, hope. Maybe he wasn't completely out of place. Maybe, somewhere in this vast, complicated galaxy, there was a connection waiting for him. Kai took a deep breath and looked around the restaurant again. The colors seemed brighter now, the stars outside twinkling more vividly. Perhaps the night hadn't been a failure after all. Perhaps, in the middle of what he had thought was an awful date, something extraordinary had begun. He finished his glowing synth tea slowly, savoring each sip. For the first time that evening, he felt like maybe he could belong not just on this planet, but in the universe itself. And with that small, quiet hope in his chest, Kai stepped out of the floating restaurant into the bustling city, ready to see what might come next. Kai stepped out of the floating restaurant and into the busy streets of the interstellar city. The neon lights of hovercars and starships reflected off the sleek towers, casting long, colorful streaks across the streets. The air was filled with the hum of engines, the chatter of aliens of all shapes and sizes, and the soft scent of exotic food from nearby stalls. Despite the city's vibrancy, Kai felt a quiet pull back to the restaurant. He could not forget the words whispered to him, "I would have chosen you." The warmth in his chest lingered, like a small ember glowing in the dark. He did not know why a simple whisper could feel so powerful, but it did. He walked slowly, replaying the evening in his mind. The awful date, the awkward conversation, the strange meal. It all seemed distant now, overshadowed by that single moment. Who was she? Why had she said that to him? And what did it mean? Kai's curiosity burned brighter than his embarrassment. He wanted to see her again, to ask questions, to understand. But the restaurant was crowded, and she had vanished among the other diners, moving with grace and efficiency. He did not even know her name. He paused by a holographic billboard, watching advertisements flicker in the sky. One showed a starship racing through a nebula. Another displayed a market with floating fruits, shaped like glowing orbs. Kai leaned against the railing, thinking, perhaps it was impossible to find her again. Maybe it had been a fleeting moment. A small kindness, in an otherwise awkward night. And yet, he could not shake the feeling that it had been meant for him. The words were not just polite. They were intentional. Someone had noticed him, someone who understood something about him that even he had not yet realized. Determined, Kai retraced his steps. He returned to the restaurant lobby, pretending to admire the floating art installations, hoping to catch a glimpse of her. He scanned the crowd carefully, observing the way staff moved between tables. There she was, carrying a tray of drinks, her hair glowing faintly under the soft lights. Her eyes met his for a brief moment, and she offered a small, almost imperceptible nod, before moving on. Kai's heart leaped. He wanted to follow her, to speak, but he hesitated. Something inside him whispered to wait, to be patient. He watched as she floated from table to table, attending to diners with care and attention. Her movements smooth and precise, almost like she was dancing through the air. Finally, when a quiet moment arrived, Kai approached her. "Excuse me," he said softly, trying to keep his voice steady. She turned, her eyes warm and curious. "Yes, I'm the one you whispered to," Kai said, feeling awkward. "The one you said you would have chosen." Her lips curved into a small smile, a flicker of recognition lighting her face. "Ah, yes. I wondered if you would remember." Kai blinked. "Remember? I can't forget." Why did you say that?" She glanced around the restaurant, ensuring no one was listening too closely. Then she leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because it was true. You have a quality, something rare, something I have seen in few humans." Kai frowned, confused. "A quality? I'm just me. I don't—" She held up a hand, stopping him gently. "No. That is the point. Most humans underestimate themselves. But I can see it in you. The potential to understand, to adapt, to connect across worlds. You have a light that others may not see yet, but I can." Kai's chest tightened. He had always felt ordinary, out of place, especially in a city filled with beings far more advanced and experienced than he. Yet here was someone extraordinary in her own way, recognizing something in him that he had never known existed. "Why? Why me?" he asked quietly. Her eyes softened. "Because not everyone chooses comfort over curiosity. Not everyone seeks to understand the universe, even when it feels too big, too strange. You do." Kai looked down at his hands. He had never thought of himself as special. He had been a quiet observer, someone who tried to learn from others rather than stand out. And now, someone was telling him that this very way of being, his empathy, his curiosity, his quiet determination, was extraordinary. A small smile formed on his lips, something he hadn't felt in a long time. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she replied softly. "Just know that the choice was always yours. I only wanted you to see it. You may not understand it yet, But one day, you will. Kai's heart raced. The words felt like a key unlocking a door inside him. He had spent so long feeling invisible, lost in a galaxy that seemed too big to notice him. But now, someone had seen him, truly seen him. Before he could respond, she moved away, tending to another table. But this time, Kai did not feel abandoned. Instead, he felt a strange kind of energy, a pull toward something greater. He did not know what the future held, but he knew that his life had shifted in some subtle, profound way. He lingered near the entrance, watching her move gracefully between tables. The restaurant's soft hum, the floating trays, the laughter and conversation of other diners. It all seemed brighter now, more alive. It was as if the universe had whispered back to him, telling him that he mattered, that he had a place in it. Kai took a deep breath and stepped outside again, into the streets of the city. The neon lights of the buildings reflected on the sleek metal of the walkways, and the air smelled faintly of spices, ozone, and distant oceans. He wandered through the city, replaying the evening in his mind. Every detail, the awful date, the awkward conversation, the floating food was still there, but now, it was tinged with hope. He walked past a small market filled with vendors selling floating fruits and glowing trinkets. Alien children laughed as they chased each other, their small bodies leaping through the air with ease. Humans and aliens mingled freely, exchanging stories, goods, and laughter. And Kai felt something shift inside him. He was part of this world, even if he had felt invisible before. He paused near a small fountain where water shimmered in zero gravity, forming intricate shapes before falling back into the pool. He sat on the edge, gazing at the patterns. He imagined the whisper again, hearing it in his mind. "I would have chosen you." Kai smiled faintly. The words were simple, yet powerful. They were a reminder that sometimes recognition comes when least expected, in moments of quiet clarity amid chaos. And perhaps, he thought, that recognition could change everything. As the night deepened, Kai made his way back to his small apartment. He passed under bridges filled with glowing advertisements and over walkways where starships zipped silently. Everywhere he looked, the city pulsed with life and possibility, and for the first time, he did not feel small. In his apartment, Kai sat by the window, looking out at the stars above the city. He thought about the date, the awkward conversation, the alien he could not connect with, but most of all, he thought about the whisper, about someone seeing him for who he truly was, about a possibility he had never considered, that maybe he could belong, maybe he could shine, maybe he could be chosen. Kai closed his eyes, letting the quiet hum of the city fill him. Tomorrow, he decided, he would not just wait. He would seek. He would explore. He would follow the pull of curiosity, the spark that had been lit by a simple whisper. And in that moment, he realized something important. Life was not just about surviving awkward moments, or blending in, or feeling ordinary. Life was about noticing the small lights in the darkness, small gestures, small words, small choices that could lead to something extraordinary. Kai's heart felt lighter, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to imagine the possibilities. Maybe one day, he would understand why he had been chosen, why that whisper had found him among so many others. Maybe one day, he would find the path that the whisper had hinted at. For now, though, he would rest. He would dream, and when the sun or whatever distant star cast its light over the city rose again, Kai would step forward into a universe that suddenly felt a little smaller, a little kinder, and full of quiet, unexpected wonder. The morning sun, or rather, the distant twin suns that bathed the city in pale gold and soft amber, peeked through Kai's small apartment window. He blinked awake, a lingering sense of wonder still fluttering in his chest. The whisper from last night echoed in his mind. "I would have chosen you." Kai had always been a quiet observer. He noticed small things, patterns in the stars, The way lights reflected on the river. The subtle hums of machines that no one else seemed to hear, but he had never been noticed for it. Until last night, after a quick breakfast of floating nutrient pods, he decided that he could not simply let the moment pass. He had to know more about the mysterious waitress, about the choice she had hinted at. Who was she, and why had she singled him out in a city full of strangers? He left his apartment and stepped into the streets. The city was alive with activity. Alien merchants peddled glowing fruits shaped like floating spheres. Children raced along zero-gravity walkways, and starships zipped overhead, leaving trails of silver light. Kai's eyes scanned every face, searching for a hint of her familiar warmth. He returned to the restaurant where the date had gone wrong. From the outside, it looked the same. Sleek towers of glass and metal, tables hovering inside, lights shimmering softly. Kai hesitated at the entrance. He had no way of knowing if she would even be there, or if he was imagining the entire encounter. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The restaurant buzzed with the usual mix of chatter, laughter, and floating trays. He moved slowly through the tables, pretending to be another customer, all the while scanning the staff. Then he saw her. She was carrying a tray, her movements fluid, graceful, almost hypnotic. Even from a distance, her presence seemed to create a calm space around her. Kai felt a familiar pull in his chest. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but his usual hesitation held him back. As she passed by, he caught her gaze. Their eyes met, and she gave him a slight, knowing smile. It was not a greeting. It was something subtler, a recognition. Kai swallowed nervously. He had to act. "Excuse me," he said, voice barely audible over the hum of the restaurant. She paused and looked at him. "Yes?" Her tone was gentle, patient, and filled with an unexpected warmth. I wanted to ask you something," Kai began. "Last night, the words you whispered. Why did you say that?" Her smile softened, and she leaned closer, just enough that only he could hear. "Because it was true. You have a way of seeing the world that is rare, even among humans." Kai frowned slightly, confusion mixing with curiosity. "A way of seeing the world? What do you mean?" She glanced around the restaurant. "Most people focus on what is easy, what is comfortable. But you notice things others miss. You listen. You observe. You care. That is a gift." Kai's breath caught. She knew his name. How could she possibly know it? His heart raced. He had not expected this. "Wait, how do you know my name?" he asked. She smiled gently. "Names are easy to find. What is hard is to see the person behind the name. And I see you." Kai felt a strange warmth in his chest, a feeling he had never experienced before. Someone had truly noticed him, not his awkwardness, not his ordinary life, but him, the real him. I don't understand," Kai said. "I'm just me." "Exactly," she replied. "Being yourself is not simple. It is rare. That is why I whispered what I did. Not everyone deserves to hear it." Kai's mind whirled. He had spent so long feeling invisible, lost in a galaxy that seemed too big for humans like him. And yet here was someone extraordinary in her own way, recognizing something he had never seen in himself. He wanted to ask more, but she had to move on to another table. She paused and said softly, "If you are willing, you can follow the signs. They will guide you." "Signs?" Kai repeated, intrigued. She nodded slightly, then disappeared into the crowd of diners. Kai's curiosity burned brighter than ever. He had no idea what she meant by signs, but he knew he wanted to find out. After finishing his meal, he left the restaurant and wandered through the city, eyes wide, scanning for anything unusual. Everywhere he looked, he tried to find patterns, hints, anything that could guide him. He noticed the subtle glow of street lamps that pulsed like they were alive, the floating banners that shifted their positions as if pointing towards something, and even the small gestures of other humans and aliens that seemed to form a rhythm he could almost understand. Hours passed, and Kai felt both tired and exhilarated. He began to notice small symbols etched on walls, patterns in the neon lights, and hints in the behavior of the people around him. Each one was subtle, but when he paid attention, they seemed to form a trail, an invitation, perhaps, or a puzzle meant just for him. Kai realized that he had never been this aware before. His curiosity had always been quiet, but now, it felt alive, urgent, and purposeful. The whisper had sparked something within him, a desire to explore, to discover, to understand not just the city, but the world, the universe, and himself. He returned to his apartment that evening, his mind buzzing with possibilities. He examined the small patterns he had noticed during the day, jotting them down in a notebook. Some were shapes, some were numbers, some were abstract forms that seemed to shimmer when he stared at them long enough. He had no idea what they meant, but he was determined to figure it out. As he wrote, he thought about the waitress. She had given him no instructions, only a hint, a whisper, a spark. Yet that spark had ignited a fire in him. For the first time, Kai felt that he was capable of more than he had imagined. He could belong, he could shine, he could make a difference. Days passed, and Kai's exploration of the city became more focused. He noticed the small gestures of kindness, the patterns of light, and the subtle rhythms of life that others overlooked. Each observation made him more confident, more aware, and more attuned to the world around him. One afternoon, while exploring a quiet plaza filled with floating fountains and softly glowing plants, Kai noticed a small device hidden under a bench. It was a simple cube, pulsing faintly with light. He picked it up and examined it carefully. There were symbols etched into its surface, similar to the ones he had been noticing around the city. Kai's heart raced. Could this be part of the signs the waitress had mentioned? Was this device meant for him? He turned it over in his hands, feeling the subtle vibration of energy coursing through it. It was as if the device itself was alive, waiting for him to understand it. For the first time, Kai realized that the universe was not as random as he had thought. There was a pattern, a purpose, a path that he had yet to follow. And he had been chosen, in some small, extraordinary way, to see it. Kai spent the rest of the evening studying the cube. He tried different angles, pressed symbols, and observed the light patterns. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the cube began to project faint holographic images into the air. They were abstract at first, lines, shapes, and symbols, but gradually, they formed a map, pointing toward locations around the city and beyond. Excitement surged through Kai. This was more than a puzzle. It was an invitation, a guide, and perhaps even a challenge. He did not know what he would find, but he felt ready. For the first time in his life, he felt that he had a purpose beyond simply existing, beyond feeling ordinary. As night fell, Kai placed the cube carefully on his desk and looked out at the city. The neon lights reflected off the windows, and the stars beyond shimmered like scattered diamonds. He imagined the waitress somewhere in the city, watching, knowing, guiding. He did not feel fear or doubt. He felt hope, curiosity, and the thrill of discovery. Kai realized that his life had changed. The awful date, the awkward conversations, the feeling of being invisible, they were no longer failures. They were part of a journey, a preparation for something greater. The universe had whispered to him, and he had listened. And now, Kai was ready to follow the signs. The morning air in the city was crisp and electric, carrying with it the hum of hovercraft engines, the soft chatter of alien voices, and the faint metallic scent of technology. Kai stepped out of his apartment, clutching the glowing cube from the previous day. It pulsed gently in his hand, as if eager to lead him somewhere. His heart raced. He had no idea what awaited him, but for the first time, fear did not hold him back. Curiosity had taken the lead. He followed the cube's holographic projections as they floated above the streets. They twisted and shifted, forming symbols, arrows, and glowing paths that only he could see. The patterns led him to neighborhoods he had never explored, alleyways lined with floating gardens, quiet plazas where children floated in zero gravity, and open markets filled with floating fruits that changed color as they ripened. Everywhere he looked, the city seemed alive, as if it were watching and responding to him. Kai noticed subtle signs everywhere, symbols etched into walls, gentle shifts in the neon lights, even the way air currents swirled around buildings. It was as if the city itself was guiding him, pointing him towards something important. He felt a strange mix of awe and exhilaration. Every small discovery made him feel more connected, more alive. Finally, the cube led him to a quiet courtyard hidden between two massive skyscrapers. A small fountain floated in the center, water suspended in arcs of shimmering light. Kai approached, heart pounding. The cube pulsed faster in his hand, projecting a holographic map that hovered above the fountain. It indicated a point further ahead, a small building tucked away behind the towering structures. Kai took a deep breath and moved toward it. The building was unremarkable at first glance, blending into the city's metallic landscape. But as he approached, he noticed symbols similar to those on the cube etched into the walls. They glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He reached out to touch the door, and a soft hum resonated through the building. It swung open easily, revealing a quiet interior filled with strange devices, glowing orbs, and walls covered in floating holographic displays. The room smelled faintly of ozone and fresh metal. Kai stepped inside, awe written across his face. He had never seen technology like this. Not even in the most advanced human research facilities. Screens floated in midair, displaying alien languages, star maps, and complex diagrams. The air seemed charged with energy, vibrating softly against his skin. "Welcome, Kai." The voice made him jump. A figure emerged from behind a glowing console, a woman, familiar yet even more radiant in the soft light. It was the waitress. Her hair shimmered faintly, as if infused with starlight, and her eyes held the same warmth that had captivated him before. "You," Kai whispered, stunned. She smiled, serene and knowing. "I have been waiting for you." "I knew you would follow the signs." Kai's mind raced. "Waiting? But what is this place? Who are you?" She gestured to the room, and holograms shifted, showing images of humans and aliens working together across the galaxy. "This is a center for discovery, understanding, and connection. I am part of a program designed to guide humans with potential. Potential like yours." Kai blinked, trying to process her words. "Potential?" "Yes," she replied softly. "You see the world differently. You notice patterns, care for others, and ask questions when most would accept what they are told. These qualities are rare, and they are needed now, more than ever." Kai looked down at his hands, suddenly self-conscious. He had never thought of himself as special. He had always been quiet, reserved, and unsure of where he belonged. And now, someone was telling him that these very traits he thought were ordinary, were extraordinary. "You mean all of this? The signs? The cube? It was meant for me?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. She nodded. "Yes, the city, the signs, the cube, they were all part of a guide to help you recognize your own potential. You have the ability to connect humans and aliens in ways that can change the course of the galaxy." Kai's mind whirled. The idea was overwhelming. Connect humans and aliens. Change the galaxy. That's huge. "I don't know if I can do that." The waitress stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "You don't have to do it alone. The path will reveal itself as you take the steps. You only need to choose to follow it." Kai took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He glanced at the cube in his hand, now glowing softly as if reassuring him. It had led him here, through a maze of signs, to a place he never would have found on his own. Maybe it was guiding him because he was ready, even if he didn't yet understand why. She gestured toward one of the holographic displays, and it projected a scene of humans and aliens working together on a floating platform above a gas giant. They were exchanging ideas, building structures, and exploring strange worlds. "This is what you can help create," she said. "A future where humans are not outsiders, but respected partners in the galaxy." Kai stared at the hologram, feeling a spark of excitement. He had always dreamed of being part of something bigger than himself, of making a difference. But the galaxy seemed too vast, and humans too small. And now, this possibility was real. "You're telling me I could actually be part of this?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. "Yes," she said, smiling. "The choice has always been yours. The difference is, now you can see it." Kai's chest tightened with emotion. He had spent so long feeling invisible, ordinary, and unsure. And yet here he was, standing in a room filled with possibilities, being told that he had a role in something greater than himself. He felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. She led him to a console and placed the cube on a platform. It floated above, spinning gently as holograms spread out around them. "The cube will guide you further," she explained. "It will help you learn, explore, and understand the connections you are capable of forming. Each step will reveal more of your potential." Kai nodded slowly. He felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. I want to try. I want to learn. I want to understand." The waitress's smile grew. "Good. The journey will not always be easy, but it will be worth it. You have the curiosity, the empathy, and the determination to succeed. Trust in yourself, Kai, and the signs will guide you." He felt a surge of confidence. For the first time, he believed that he could rise to the challenge, not as a small, ordinary human, but as someone capable of extraordinary things. He realized that the awful date, the awkward conversations, and the moments of self-doubt had all led him to this point. They had prepared him, in their own way, for a journey of discovery and purpose. The waitress stepped back, her form glowing softly in the ambient light. "I will be here if you need guidance," she said. "But now, it is your turn to step forward." Kai took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the thrill of possibility. He looked at the cube, then at the holographic displays, and finally back at her. "I'm ready," he said firmly. "I want to see what I can do." Her eyes softened, and she nodded. "Then go. Explore, learn, and connect. The galaxy is waiting for humans like you." Kai left the room, stepping out into the bustling streets once more. The city seemed brighter, more alive, and full of possibilities he had never noticed before. He felt a strange energy coursing through him, a mixture of hope, curiosity, and determination. He walked through the streets with a sense of purpose he had never felt before. Each step was guided by the cube's faint glow, and each glance revealed new patterns, new hints, and new opportunities. The city was no longer a place where he felt out of place. It was a playground, a puzzle, and a path all at once, waiting for him to explore. Kai realized that the discovery of his potential had changed everything. He was no longer just a human trying to survive in an alien world. He was someone with a purpose, someone capable of bridging gaps, forming connections, and shaping a future he had never imagined. As he walked, he looked up at the stars above the city. Somewhere out there, beyond the skyscrapers and the neon lights, a vast universe waited, and Kai knew, with quiet certainty, that he was ready to take his place in it. The path ahead was unknown, filled with challenges, puzzles, and discoveries. But for the first time, Kai did not feel afraid. He felt chosen, guided, and ready. The city, the cube, the whispers all had led him here. And now, his journey was only beginning. The city hummed softly as Kai walked through the streets, cube in hand. Its gentle glow pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. A quiet reminder of the path he had chosen. The signs, the whisper, the hidden patterns they had, all led him here. And now, he understood that this was only the beginning. Kai reached the edge of the city, where the towering skyscrapers gave way to open fields of softly glowing vegetation. The stars above shimmered brighter here. Unobstructed by neon lights or hovering starships, he paused, letting the quiet wash over him, and looked at the cube. The holographic display shifted again, projecting a path that stretched into the distance. It was not just a map of the city, now it reached far beyond, to distant planets and faraway worlds. Kai felt a thrill of anticipation. The universe, vast and full of mysteries, was waiting for him. A soft voice called from behind. "You've come far, Kai." He turned to see the waitress standing a few steps away, her presence calm and luminous. I've learned so much already," Kai said, smiling. "But I still don't fully understand. How did you know I could do this?" She smiled gently. "Because potential is not hidden, it is revealed. It waits for the right moment, the right choice, and you chose to see it." Kai glanced at the cube again. The cube. The signs. They're guiding me. But why me? "Because not everyone notices the small lights in the darkness," she said softly. "Most people look for what is easy, what is comfortable. But you notice patterns. You listen. And you care. These qualities are rare. And the galaxy needs them." Kai's chest tightened. He had always thought of himself as ordinary, invisible in a city of extraordinary beings. And yet, here he was, being told that his quiet observation, his empathy, and his curiosity were exactly what the universe needed. I think I understand," he said. "It's not about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about seeing, learning, and connecting." She nodded. "Exactly. And now, it is your turn to shape what comes next." Kai looked around the open fields, at the stars beyond, and felt a sense of purpose he had never known. For so long, he had felt small, lost, and ordinary. But now, he realized that being ordinary in the wrong way was one thing, but being ordinary in a way that connected hearts, minds, and worlds, that was extraordinary. The cube pulsed brighter, projecting a path toward the horizon. Kai took a deep breath and started walking. Each step felt lighter. Yet more important, the signs along the path shifted subtly, guiding him toward his first mission. Helping a group of humans and aliens work together to restore a small floating station damaged by a recent storm. It was not glamorous, but it was meaningful. As he approached the station, he saw humans and aliens working side by side, some struggling to communicate, others unsure how to collaborate. Kai stepped forward, holding the cube high, its gentle light spread across the area, drawing attention. "Hello," he said, voice clear and confident. "I think I can help." Heads turned. Some humans blinked, surprised to see someone like Kai stepping forward. Aliens tilted their heads, curious. Kai felt a warmth spread through him. He was nervous, yes, but he also felt ready. He began observing, listening, and understanding. Slowly, he guided the teams, noticing where misunderstandings happened and offering small, simple suggestions. He pointed out patterns, encouraged collaboration, and reminded everyone that their strengths were complementary. The cube glowed with approval as the team began to work more smoothly. Laughter replacing confusion. Cooperation replacing hesitation. Hours passed. By the time the sun or distant star set, the station was fully restored. Humans and aliens stood together, smiling and talking. A quiet camaraderie forming among them. Kai stepped back, watching, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. The waitress appeared beside him, silent for a moment, letting him take in the scene. "You see?" she asked softly. "You are capable of more than you imagined. One small choice, one small action, can ripple outward and change everything." Kai smiled, a mixture of relief and joy washing over him. "I think I'm starting to understand," he said. "It's not just about me. It's about connecting people. helping them see what's possible together. She nodded. Exactly. And this is only the beginning. The galaxy is vast, and there are many more connections to make, many more patterns to reveal. Kai looked up at the stars, feeling their quiet brilliance fill him with hope. For the first time in his life, he truly felt seen, not just by one person, but by a universe that had given him the chance to step forward, to notice, and to make a difference. Days turned into weeks. Kai continued to follow the cube's guidance, traveling to new cities, helping humans and aliens collaborate, and learning more about himself with each step. The city where it had all begun no longer felt like the limits of his world. It was merely the first chapter of a much larger story. With every mission, Kai grew more confident, more attuned to patterns, and more capable of seeing potential where others overlooked it. Humans he once thought ordinary began to thrive under his guidance, discovering strengths they never knew they had. Aliens he had once feared or struggled to understand became allies and friends. Each small connection, each act of guidance, felt like a thread weaving a larger tapestry. One evening, standing on a high platform, overlooking a nebula-lit sky, Kai held the cube and smiled. He thought of the awful date that had started it all, of the awkwardness, the mistakes, and the feeling of being invisible, and he realized that every small misstep, every moment of doubt, had led him here. The waitress appeared beside him, her presence calm and luminous. "You have come far," she said. "You see now what I meant when I whispered those words?" Kai nodded. "Yes. I understand now. Being chosen isn't about being perfect. It's about noticing, learning, and stepping forward when it matters." She smiled, faint starlight glowing in her hair. "Exactly. And now, the universe is yours to explore, to connect, to inspire, to help others see the light they carry within them." Kai took a deep breath, feeling the vastness of the galaxy around him. The stars stretched endlessly, each one a possibility, a connection waiting to be made. He felt small, yes, but also capable, seen, and ready. For the first time, Kai realized that everything had changed. The awful date, the whispered words, the hidden signs they had, all led him to this moment. A life of ordinary moments had transformed into a life of extraordinary purpose. He held the cube tightly, feeling its gentle pulse, and took his first step forward into the wider universe. The city lights behind him shimmered softly. The stars above twinkled like scattered diamonds, and the future stretched ahead, full of promise and possibility. Kai knew that the journey would not always be easy. There would be challenges, moments of doubt, and obstacles yet unseen, but he also knew that he had been chosen not for perfection, not for power, but for the courage to notice, to act, and to connect. And that was more than enough. As he walked toward the first new mission awaiting him, Kai felt a quiet joy in his chest. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, friends, and discoveries, and he would face it all not alone, but guided by the whisper, the cube, and the unshakable belief that he could make a difference, because sometimes a single whisper could change everything. Kai smiled, feeling the warmth of possibility spread through him. He had been chosen, and now he was ready. The stars above seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the spark within him. The galaxy awaited, and Kai stepped forward, fully alive, fully seen, and fully ready for the extraordinary adventure ahead.